Welcome to Seek and Find with Ishita. And thank you
Thanks.
so much for joining in the podcast. It means a lot.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Yeah. So, I know that you are one of the comedians Indian comedians in UK, and you have been in US, and your journey is very intriguing in itself. But first of all, I would like to congratulate you for your show on the Sony Live, where you are actually performing as Suhrawardy, Hussain Suhrawardy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how does that came across? You have spent a lot of time, mocking the politicians. So, how was like stepping in the shoes of one?
Suhrawardy is a particularly scary guy because he gave a speech that started a riot in Calcutta
Yeah,
in 1947. See, part of it is because I talk so much about history and the history of empire.
yeah,
A lot of directors of streaming shows and films, I guess, have seen my stuff. And so they know that, okay, this is broadly the genre of it.
okay,
He likes all this stuff, Britain, India. So
yeah,
when the show came about, the director saw a photo of Suhrawardy
okay,
and said, "This reminds me of Anuvab Pal, the comedian." And
okay.
he said, "That's why I called you in because you looked a lot like Suhrawardy." Then I saw the photo, and Suhrawardy is a 60-year-old guy. His face was much bigger than mine. He's much older than me. And I was like, "You saw this photo, thought of me?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, I thought of you." And you look at Suhrawardy now, he's got a massive belly, he's got big
Yeah,
jowls. And I mean, I'm a bit fat and I've got thick,
yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, so that's kind of like how he said, "You look a lot like this guy and you love this period of history." I said, "I do." He said, "Do you want to be in Freedom at Midnight? And will you audition?" I auditioned. That's how it sort of started and sort of got going.
And when he told you that you exactly look like him, so were you like, okay, I don't know if it is a compliment that you thought of me when you had this story in your mind, or I should think of it like an embarrassment
It
because
is an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment, Ishita. There's no other way to look at it. It was embarrassing. Like in that he, I later I read a lot about him. In fact, after the show came out, someone in his family who lives in England got in touch with me, and part of his family lives in Germany, and they got in touch with me and said, "This you portrayed thing, and he was a very interesting man," and they sent me some facts about him, and in reality, it was quite complex because
okay,
after that incident happened, he was under a big cloud because
okay.
these riots happened under his watch. He was the
Mhm.
main minister. The police didn't do anything. And later he went to Pakistan and became a minister of Pakistan and then died under mysterious circumstances. So he had a peculiar, and it wasn't funny at all, right? Because
Yeah,
he's a cruel, cruel person. So, I mean, not that his family won't say that, but
yeah,
obviously, like the things he did, history remembers him for being a cruel person. And I remember playing the part and then getting a lot of messages when the show came out, especially from people who watch my comedy,
okay.
saying your face was too sweet to play Surawati. Like they didn't believe that this guy could be the butcher of Bengal. And I realized what they mean. And then later I
Yeah.
watched it, and I feel like I could have played him more seriously. I'd only been cast in comedic things, comedy roles, so I don't actually know how to channel a serious part. But the part required more seriousness.
So when you were actually playing this person and you knew the whole backstory, and when you were in the in the scenes, do you feel like, okay, maybe this is like too serious for me, and I am not gonna perform this genre from now on because I'm not able to see myself getting in that skin of the person.
See, I like history a lot. I like Indian history, especially that those years,
Okay,
India under the British, India after the British. So I'm very interested in that sort of thing. So I was very happy to be part of the show
okay,
because I hung out with the guy who played Jinnah, Mountbatten, Nehru. We all got to know each other quite well. So I it was great fun being part of the show. The others were actors, like they were serious actors.
yeah,
Written quite a few scripts. I came from a comedy background,
yeah,
so the thing is that the lesson here was for me to, like, if I'm doing a serious role, I got to tone it down a little bit. Otherwise, people will expect me to say something funny or have
yeah,
a comedic face. That always tends to be the
yes.
problem.
Yeah. So when you are performing a comedy or a stand up, so you are in control, right? It's your vision, it's your audience. But when you are performing in somebody else's vision, in a film or a movie, when you have a director, how difficult was that transition for you? Because I think they are very different worlds
It's a
altogether.
great question. It is a great question. When I don't control the material, it's a very different job. You are there as a servant to the story,
Yeah,
and a lot of big stars or a lot of big comedians have a lot of difficulty adjusting to that in their heads,
yeah,
because they're like, oh, things I say, thousands of people laugh,
yes,
how are they telling me what to do, etc. And I think it's quite the opposite. You have to become a nobody.
true.
Acting requires a lot of humility. You're supposed to just sort of disappear into the part. The biggest
True.
compliment someone can give you is, I didn't even recognize you in it. Like that's when you do a job really well, where people are like, you were in it, I didn't even know you were in it. That
Yeah,
you're not supposed to stand out at all. And that is a head switch you need to make. But because I like theater and film so much, and I spent time in theater and comedy before I came to comedy,
oh, okay,
that world, that way of working was familiar to me. It's just
okay,
been a very long time that I hadn't done acting. It's been a long time because I spent so many years doing comedy. So it was a switch. But
yeah,
how that world operates was not unfamiliar to me. Whereas, if I was talking to a friend, I was talking to a few comedian friends who've done quite a bit of acting, like Zakir Khan has done some acting,
yeah,
and various other people have done quite a bit of acting. And they were saying, they take time to adjust because in comedy, the whole focus is on you,
yeah,
right? And here it's the job is to disappear.
that's true. Yeah. So, like when you had that switch, when you were acting, was there a time you found it actually, let's say, difficult to just have not have all the attention on you, which basically, you are used to because
I
you're
love
used to.
that. I actually love that. I don't enjoy the attention on me. You know why? Because I feel the job of a comedian should be to tell interesting stories and anecdotes
Okay.
while in character, and what has happened in the world of entertainment is that the life outside that now is as much in demand as the life inside it.
Yeah.
Like earlier, you could be a very boring person, but what you put out, little bits of comedy, this, that, your comedy show, your film, that's what you're judged by.
Yes.
But now people want to see what you're eating, what you're drinking, where you're going, where you're married to. People want to see
So
everything.
true.
So you're performing all the time. Um, I find that, and I have a lot of actor friends. I live in Bombay, so here and even in the UK, even though in the UK I'm more comedian friends than actor friends. A really good actor will tell you he's very happy to be part of an ensemble. And he's very happy to just do his part and go away and not have attention on himself. You're absolutely right that comedians don't.
Yeah.
Comedians love being the center of attention. I've never enjoyed being the center of attention. I want people to see that BBC clip,
Yes.
for what it is, but nothing to do with me as a person. People should see the
Yeah.
thing for what it is. People should see Freedom of Midnight for what it is, or the films. And I'm actually a very boring person. Like if you ask my wife or my family, I don't think I'm a very boring person, but I'm like anybody else. Don't have
Yeah.
an interest in life. But what I'm putting out into the world, like that's the thing that should be interesting.
Yeah, that's right. I mean that is a culture that I have been noticing. I mean specifically, I follow Indian media a lot. I am not very used to the German media because I just find German media just very boring. So I just follow Indian media, and in Indian media there is this thing that more than the creativity of the actor, it's about who the actor is with or who is it going with or what this comedian is doing outside of work, which is has nothing to do with anybody in the world.
The crazy thing is when 10 comedians get together in India, 10 of us, and I was just saying this to a friend of mine, we very rarely discuss our sets. We discuss money, discuss this, that, and the other. Why don't we discuss sets? Like we never discuss our sets. We should be
Yeah,
discussing our sets. Like why did that work? Why did this work? Or how can I make this better?
yeah.
And that baffles me that we don't discuss the work itself.
Because the other
Luckily, I have some comedian friends with whom I'm able to discuss only the set. Uh,
Okay.
and we exchange things about sets. We watch each other's, give each other feedback. But by and large, most conversations we have with other comedians is just quite shallow. Varun Grover is a friend with whom I'm able to, even though our work is very, very different, we do very different
Yeah.
things in very different countries. I am able to share quite a bit of what I'm doing with him and vice versa.
Wow. I mean, like, how do you define, like, when you say you have friends with whom you discuss sets and with whom you cannot discuss sets, other topics? So how do you decide, okay, with this person I have the vibe of discussing the comedy or the set?
It's a good question. Hard to know. I think over time, you see who you gel with, who you become friends with. Some people are not comfortable discussing the work,
Yeah.
they keep the work very protective, and people have different ways of working, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I have some very dear comedian friends with whom we talk about, like, where is the business going, and I can't do the show, you
Mhm.
want to do the show, that kind of thing, but we don't talk about sets. Whereas I've got other friends, very, very famous comedians whose work, who I've known for 20 years, if you look at their comedy set and my comedy set, you would think there's no way these guys can be friends, right?
Okay.
But we are dear, dear friends, and we exchange sets and talk about each other's sets and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's rare. It's
And I've always seen the people from the industry saying that in this industry there are no friends. So you are the first person who I'm hearing say that, okay, you have friends in the industry.
oh, I started very early, and I think I was very lucky when I started very, very early that some of us didn't know how big this would get.
Okay.
Some of us didn't know that this would be a sustainable industry where we could make a living. It's already lasted 16, 17 years in my
Yeah.
profession. So, none of us sort of predicted where this would go. So we were quite fragile. And so that initial set of us, whether it's Khatri or Vidas or Saurapant or even Zakir, or I mean, name it. We are all sort of have a Varun Grover, Kunal Kamra. Like, we have a sort of relationship with each other and a friendship. We don't see each other very often, but as and when we do, we are very warm and cordial, and also friendly, and we help each other
Yeah.
out. I mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't do a show the other day. I called up Azim Banatwala to see if he could. He couldn't, and then Anirban I spoke to, who I'm very fond of, and then
Yeah.
he wanted some favor, and so we're all in touch.
Yeah. I mean, your this line actually brings a very different perspective of the industry, which I really like, that at the end they are humans. They have human connections and they like having friends. If you are willing to give something, you you can have that kind of bond in the industry with, not with everybody, but at least with some selected few
But
of
also,
them.
I'm also a watcher of comedy, just like you.
Okay.
I'm a fan. So, like, Basi and I know each other a little bit. We don't know each other very well, but I admire his set. Like, I find his
Yeah.
set very funny. I also like seeing how Zakir has changed from when we all
Mhm.
began in 2012 to now. So all of us, even if we don't see each other very often, our friends, we like watching each other and seeing how the art form has evolved and how,
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's so interesting to see, like, say, for example, my comedy. I do comedy about the empire in Britain, right, to British
Yeah.
people.
Agreed.
I do some shows in India, but very rarely, right? I do mostly corporate shows in India. I don't do very many public shows. I have nothing, say, for example, with my set, just
Okay.
my set, with someone like Harsh Gujarat. But I really enjoy watching Harsh's shows because
Okay.
he teaches me something every time, because he is talking about a world that's very specific, right?
Yeah.
He's saying Jats behave like this
True.
and Gujars behave like this. And I don't know anything about Jats and Gujars, but I'm getting an insight into that world and how they behave, the specificity of that world. And it's giving me a sort of knowledge of that world that I do not have,
That's true. Yeah.
so it's hard to explain it. And he's so specific, and then I think, how can I be specific about the things I'm writing about?
Hmm.
about where I'm from and so on. What are my sort of abilities to connect and so on. Um, so yeah, so I think we all learn from each other.
That's a great thing to say. I mean, that's what an artist would say, looking at other artists that, okay, he's doing this and he's doing great. What I can just take away from this and improve what I am doing and put
Always.
more effort.
There are a few people in comedy that I'm friends with just by the length of time I've known them. And
Okay.
they have become famous for various reasons. Like, say, someone like Kunal Kamra. Him
Yeah.
and I are friends with each other before we got into comedy.
Oh,
So we talk about each other's sets. I don't know anything about his political side or all the controversies or all of that, but we are social friends. We discuss comedy, we discuss our favorite comedians,
yeah.
and we're very fond of each other. But there's a whole life he has outside where he engages with the Indian public and is controversial and has issues and which I know very little about.
Yeah. Actually, you are very right that this art form has evolved, and like each time each comedian has a very different kind of thing that they are portraying. So comedy has many genres. But I would like to just ask you, you might have heard about the controversy in India about the latent show, the Great Indian Show. I am based in Germany, so basically I don't have Indian colleagues with me. So I have Chinese colleagues and I have mostly German colleagues. So there was this Chinese colleague who actually asked me that, I am getting a lot of on my feed about this. So what is this about? And he told me about it. I had no idea what was the thing about. And I saw the clip and that was like that. It really shook me. I'm like, this is not comedy anymore. This is just humiliating the other person. So how do you take that part in India? Because
So that particular show comes from an American show, I think, which is called Kill Tony, where
okay.
anyone is allowed to go up and speak for 3 minutes, and
Mm-hmm.
then the judges pass their judgment, and then the public votes, and then the judges vote on whether this person could be a comedian or whatever. It's called India's Got Lated, and it went on YouTube. N- Now, when you do a show like that with the Indian public, someone will say something crazy, right? Because there's
Yeah,
no censorship, there's no rules. It's not TV, no one will
yeah,
edit it. So some crazy thing will be said. So now some very misogynist thing was said, right, by that podcast host.
yeah,
And I'm surprised that, that for this long, like other Indian public didn't object because YouTube is available to anyone. I'm surprised uncles and aunties didn't look at that and say, this is wrong and that is wrong. And, I'm surprised that it was allowed to exist as long as it existed.
yes, that's true.
Um, but each person will have their own view of comedy. I don't like that style of American comedy where they just pull up a member of the public and insult them. I don't get it. I'm not a big fan of it. But he loads of Indian people. It was the most popular show on YouTube in India.
Yeah.
So the Indian public absolutely love it.
There is a section of the public that loves it. There's a section of the public that is just interested maybe in a bit of, let's say, not the respectable comedy, but where you are actually mocking somebody or maybe let's say humiliating somebody. The people who enjoyed that because I just saw that clip and maybe then I just googled the show and I watched a part of it and I was like, I am done for comedy. This is not comedy. So
That's the thing, right? It's such a big country, Shita. We get that a lot. I get it. I've been doing this 20 years now. And you'd be surprised from the beginning of the AIB controversy, people will come up to you and say, I saw this, it was awful. I went to the show, it was terrible. Is your comedy like this? I hate all comedy, which is a fair reaction because someone has
yeah,
gone to a show, you tell them you're a comedian, they tell you this. But there are so many different styles and kinds of comedy and people and what people are doing. And each has their own audience and their own sort of systems. There's so many perform in so many different countries. It's a massive industry. All I suggest to people is find your own niche,
yeah,
find your own little thing of comedy you like or
yeah.
comedians. The internet is a sea. There'll be stuff for everybody.
Yeah.
And you can't put all comedy within one bucket, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Just because you had one bad experience with the doctor, you'll never go to the doctor again. Like, that's not a thing, right? Like,
That's true.
a lot of people say that.
But yeah, I mean, the landscape of comedy in India, I think India has literally great comedians over there who are doing great comedy without saying anything like that. Yeah,
Now, a lot of people will say, why did this become popular? Now, how can you control, that's like saying, why did Trump become the president? Like that everyone will have their own favorite.
yeah. That's true. And now, as we're talking about the forms of comedy, so you have written a streaming show, you have written a movie, and then you have are doing stand-ups. But now, like when you're doing a stand-up, there is something called a slow burn joke. Like you can have the joke, and then the audience laughs at it, and you can take your time in, just delivering it. But when you have something on a streaming platform, or let's say when you're writing a movie, nowadays we have just 3-second attention span, literally, because of this short video culture that we have. How do you actually manage writing your joke so that the audience gets it? Because if the audience is not able to laugh in that 4-second span, they lose their interest, because nowadays we are just fan of this scrolling culture now.
Yeah, that is there. You're absolutely correct. And we grapple with that stuff all the time, especially for streaming. I think to myself, should it be quicker? Are people looking at three screens, etc.? But at the same time, Amazon and Netflix long shows are also thriving.
Yeah.
There is a streaming culture where people are streaming long shows. Apple TV is thriving, prestige drama is thriving. So the same people that scroll in 10 seconds will also give you attention.
Okay.
So the fundamental rules of script writing haven't changed. I do think you've got to get to the point quicker.
Yeah.
You can't do like 5 minutes of establishing mood and all that. Like you have to get to the point very quickly.
Okay.
And public are a lot less forgiving now
Yeah.
than they were earlier. Also, the biggest challenge is not the biggest challenge is what new do you have to say
Yeah.
that some kid in a reel has not already shown you? Like every topic is covered, every worldview has been covered and better.
Yes.
What insight do you have about cooking or shoes or marriage or books or any topic which hasn't already been covered in a reel and much better and much funnier?
Yeah. So, how do you do your background? Like, for example, if you are writing something and you have to land up with this joke and you have to make it funnier, how do you actually have that process of thinking about it?
So,
How
what
do you do your
happens with
research?
sitcoms is that you start with character, and the
Okay.
character has to have wants and desires and obstacles. And if that character is in an interesting, complex situation,
Okay.
like, say, name a TV show that you like a show you've been watching recently, any show,
Friends. It's
great,
always
right?
friends.
So the thing is that, and that has lasted, imagine, like that got written in my generation. I'm 50.
Yeah.
And that has lasted 30 years into your generation, right? So
Yes.
imagine how good that writing is, where five friends, each of them will have some romantic complication of the other. They live around each other. And every
Yeah.
episode will have some plot complication, and which will get
Yeah.
resolved. But once you know who the characters are, this guy's a little dumb, he's trying to be an actor, this guy so and so, this Phoebe is a little all over the place. So we
Yeah.
know who these people are, and then you can do anything with them because the audience has fallen in love with the character. So the
Yeah.
rules are a little different than writing a reel.
Okay.
Like in writing a
Yeah.
reel, you've got 3 seconds. You're like, Acha, this will happen. The door will open. This person will fall. Haha. Right? But
Yeah.
writing a series or a sitcom or something like Friends, the rules are a little more complicated, but they can go on for longer.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I was having a podcast some days back with a politician, and he was in South Africa, and he was just thrown out of parliament on the basis of a 4-second part which was taken from his 1 hour video.
Wow.
So, just a 4-second part out of context. And I was so amazed that this short video culture is literally shaping our views in every area. So, I think that also makes it very difficult for the people who are making long form content, very difficult to come up with something that the audience stucks with the
Yeah.
long
And
form
also
content.
along with that, just the culture of going to the movies has gone away.
Yeah, because we have
People are
only.
just not used to going to the movies because if it's a reasonably small show, you can do it on OTT. You don't need a
Yeah.
film.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have written for Amazon.
Yes.
There was this movie called Lions of Punjab. Then you have
Yeah.
written
President is coming. So I've done a few films. I've done 3 series for Amazon. I've written a BBC radio play. I've written a whole bunch of stuff. I've written the Hindi films. So yes, I do think that there is a very strong, and we grapple with this every day. You know, who are we
yeah.
writing for when the audience are all on phones, right?
Hmm.
Should everyone be doing 10-second micro dramas, right? We all think about that. But I do think that the whole world is not completely going to phones.
Yeah.
There is still a culture of people going to films and watching
Yeah.
theater and watching a series. You know, how long it'll last, I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's still some portion of, the world that will still go to Netflix and Amazon and watch a series.
Yeah. I truly agree with that. That now everybody's picking up their own specific kind of entertainment. It's just that now the majority of them are picking the short form as their entertainment because it's quicker and we just scroll it away. So I think it's just happening
And
like
that
that.
world will be
Yeah.
there. But
Yes.
but one hopes that the old world, which is TV film, doesn't completely go away. It'll probably
Yeah.
reduce by 50%. And
Yeah.
it probably will make people better writers because you have to be quicker, you have to get to the point, you have to be funny.
Yeah.
But you can still build character and do 9 episodes and 10 episodes, and people will watch. The
I was actually also noticing that we want to watch shows that do not, in which we don't have to use our brains. There is such a big audience for this South Korean shows which has no realism at all whatsoever. No
huge.
realism.
But then
Yeah,
there are some realistic South Korean rom-coms also that people like watching. I think everyone finds their own audience. The main thing is, I think you have to be true to yourself.
yeah,
I think the difficulty is if I try to be Harsh Gujral or Harsh Gujral tries to be me,
yeah,
or I try to be Upamanyu or Upamanyu tries to be me, or I try to be Vipul Goel. We have to be authentic to who we are
yeah.
and we'll find our own audience. I don't think it's hard.
That's so true. I mean, yes, that's because there was a time when I am obsessed with the comedy. Then comes a time when I'm obsessed with the K drama. So I
Yeah,
think the choices also change as we change and our situations change.
yes. And our job as entertainers is to meet you somewhere along your drive.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
come across my comedy, you'll come across somebody else's. Like when we were younger, as
Yeah.
artists, we used to think, Arey, this person likes X, but they like that person also. That person is
Yeah.
terrible. But then that person, your audience member, has a wide range of tastes. It could
Yeah.
include you, it could include the opposite of you also.
That's
So
true.
you can't decide anything. You just have to be authentic to yourself. I think that's all that matters.
So I have been for last 2 weeks obsessed with comedy. I'm watching all sorts of comedy shows. And before that everything was just like fine, so I was like watching anything, watching Friends or anything. So I think choices change as I change or my situations change along the way.
And you don't know who comedy is helping on. There was a time in the pandemic where I thought, there's so much craziness in the world. What is this all for? What are we doing
Yeah.
comedy for? We're just wasting our time. And then I remember an audience member telling me on one of the Zoom shows I did at uh, his that he was watching from a hospital thing. He was in hospital for 28 days. His wife had just passed away and he couldn't get out to see her. And he was joining any live stream comedy show just to get over the fact that he could go and bury his wife. That these comedy shows were helping him pass the time. So I was like, maybe we do serve a purpose, like, because I remember when the pandemic happened, I was like, who's going to watch comedy in the middle of this? People are just trying to survive. Do we serve any purpose? And that's when like I realized, no, maybe we do serve a purpose.
Yeah.
Maybe, or like
Yes.
someone will come up to me after a show and say, I came to see your first show on a first date with my wife, and now this happened to me last week. He's like, now we've come with our 9-year-old old daughter.
Okay. That's so
So
sweet.
then you realize, shit, you've been working so long that
Yeah.
a person met, dated for 6 years, then had a
Yeah.
child. So I've been doing this like 20, 22 years. So they make sense. They have a
Yeah.
12-year-old daughter. Saw my their parents introduced her to my comedy. So you realize, okay, maybe you do serve a purpose. I try to not let any of this get to my head. I just try to just get up every day and think, God, I'm rubbish at what I do. Can I get better? That's all. That's all you can think about.
I mean, that is such a feeling. Like, I cannot even imagine. I'm just listening to you and I am still, smiling because what a feeling it would be that, the parents watched your comedy and now they have brought their daughter to actually introduce her to, your comedy. And what a feeling it would be that, you have been relevant for that so many years because that is the biggest struggle.
There was another mad case like that where I'd done a show for at the University of Warwick for
Okay.
a Bombay family for the daughter for the South Asian Students Association.
Okay.
And some 15, 18 years later, I ended up doing a show where it was her grandfather's 80th birthday. And they had organized a corporate show for him. And I was like, imagine the cycle. Did a show for the granddaughter in Warwick, who is now married, settled, etc. And then for the grandfather's 80th birthday, the granddaughter was there with their child, the whole family. I guess you touch lives in different ways. You don't think about it.
The best thing of being an artist is that you get to touch the lives of so many people without even knowing that you are actually doing it. Without
Yeah,
even knowing.
yeah. So that stuff is quite good.
Yeah.
With
Yes.
you, I try not to think about it. Because I'm not inherently quite I try not to be an emotional, serious person, and I try to brush it off. I just look at it as work. Like, can this be funny? Can we make it funny? So yeah, but I guess one of the byproducts of the job is do some good, which is good.
Yeah, that's true. And I think comedy can only come. I used to think like that comedy comes from the emotion of happiness. When you have happy things around you, so you feel that and the comedy comes out. But then I heard this podcast which was with Anuvab Singh Bassi, and he told that when he was doing comedy, he was not happy at that time. He was in a very tough situation at that point of time when he started with it. And that's why I want to come to your story that you were in the corporate world in US. You didn't start as a comedian, you were there for quite a long time. And then you wrote your first play, The Chaos Theory, which was about two Indian professionals bickering for 40 years. How does that came about?
I just found out they may. I don't know if this is going to happen, but there's a small chance they may do the play again in London after 20 years. Now there's some talk right now. Very famous comedian might be in it. I can't announce it, but there's some talk that it might come back after 20 years. So I was talking to the director, and he told me, "You just wrote this play, right?" I said, "No, I wrote it when I was 23 years old. I didn't write it now. I wrote it a long time ago." Yeah, I mean, at the time I knew professors, and I wanted to write a love story because we were at that age where you're rejected in love a lot when you're 20 to
Yeah,
23. A lot
true.
of people turn you down, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of sort of thing. And so that was the time where I was like, I want to write a love story about older people and see what happens. And I didn't think it'll last this long. I didn't think the play would last this long. And
Okay.
they got made into a book, then it got performed quite a lot. I guess love stories people like, because there's something nice about them, and everyone's had their own. And there's something about heartbreak, and there's something about departure. Also, it's set in a time before cell phones and any of that.
Yeah,
So
yes,
that's when departures meant something, like it's sort of
true.
um, someone left, they left. You couldn't connect with them, So
Yes.
that,
Nowadays, it's just situationships.
yeah, now I don't even, that's the thing. I don't even know like how I would do something now where two people don't even meet. They meet on a phone, and then
That's
they
true.
tap on each other, and then they begin chatting, and like I don't know how you would do a love story when two people can't even converse.
Yeah.
They guess they converse on the phone. It's a different kind of thing. And so many relationships live and die on the phone
Yeah.
without.
Yes.
It's a very different world. I good bad I don't know, but it's just different.